News Radio 700 WLW.
If you're not familiar with Rikers Island, it is the worst of the worst that gets sent there for crimes committed in the state of New York. Can you imagine if Donald Trump is thrown there for one night and the amount of Secret Service protection that would be needed? But again, the judge is just, you know what? He's impervious to all of that, it seems. So what of all of this, and where is it going, and why is it meandering? And standing by is someone who has never lost a case in his life, someone who has litigated thousands and thousands of cases, and came up with a quality phrase that I have used many times, that every time a lawyer gets paid, an angel gets wings, and that would be our good buddy Jeremy Rosenthal. Jeremy, how are you on this glorious Tuesday?
Man, if I was any better, I'd be twins. And you're right. Many angels, yes.
If you were counseling Donald Trump right now, besides the fact that we would see you on television every single day, but if you were counseling Donald Trump right now about what he says and doesn't say about this trial, would you tell him to shut up? And if you did, do you think he would listen to you?
No, I don't think he would listen to me. And yes, I would tell him to shut up. But I think more importantly, look, Stormy Daniels on the witness stand, right? We need some good old-fashioned American pie sex to juice this whole story up, don't we? But now Stormy Daniels does not move the ball really at all for the prosecution. But if I'm Donald Trump's lawyer, I am telling him right now, keep your S together.
Okay. do not make, we're not going to make faces.
We're not going to scowl. We're not going to react to anything she says. Okay. I mean, that is crucial, because if she is on the stand and she draws him off sides in front of the jury, that's probably bad news for him. So the most important thing he can do at this moment, at this hour, is to keep it together. And his lawyers, I'm sure, have prepped him for this and have said, now she's going to take the stand. And when she does, she's going to say a lot of things that we're not going to like, and we'll have our chance to cross-examine her. But while she's up there, we need to be like the Fonzie, right? Just from Pulp Fiction. And what's the Fonz? He's cool, right? So that's what has to happen here.
I think the biggest revelation today is we actually have a porn star that can say more than, oh yeah, oh, just like that, baby. Oh yeah, oh, you're so good. I think we've had that today, and I think that's a giant revelation.
So much for my mother listening to this. But yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, I mean, all they're trying to do is sully Trump's name. And I think captured the attention of the jury, which was lulled to sleep, I would guess, the last couple of days.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with anything, Jeremy. This was an NDA and how the bookkeeping was kept. And it was a legal payment. How else would you be able to describe what an NDA is? And I'm not sure what this is any more than keep Trump off the campaign trail, get Trump, convict him of something, get a mugshot, let's see him in jail togs, because it's all about the money, the transaction, and the legality of such. There's nothing else that matters, right?
Okay, so from a legal standpoint, and I'll take the I'll take the devil's advocate position here, and I'll tell you what I think the people of New York, that being the state, that's what the prosecution is called, what they would say about this is, okay, and it's a very broad statute. If you falsify any kind of business record, right? If you go to the dentist and your dentist falsifies a receipt, cooks the books a little bit, even just a little bit, even falsifies a voice message, that's a misdemeanor offense. And if you're doing it to cover up a felony, well, that's a felony offense. And what they're saying here is that Michael Cohen, basically, the money paid to him was characterized as legal fees, which would be a write-off and would not be really anything to write home about. With when it comes to campaign finance and when it comes to campaign laws, but an NDA would be. And it's technical, don't get me wrong, it's pretty technical. And the prevailing thing that I see is that it's like, okay, now you may not know this, Ken. I am extremely good looking. Okay. And that right, right. So if I'm driving in Texas, if I'm going to watch the world champion Texas Rangers, you knew I was going there. If I'm on my way down Highway 121 to watch the world champs play, and I get pulled over for speeding, right? And I bat my eyes because I'm such a good looking guy, and that police officer lets me out of the ticket. Does that mean I'm not speeding? Maybe I'm going 5 over, maybe I'm going 10 over. So I think a lot of the sentiment that, look, this is politically motivated, that this is if his name wasn't Donald Trump, he wouldn't be getting prosecuted for such a technical thing. It's hard to argue that point, and it's really hard to debate that point. That said, I mean, the prosecution has spent better part of a week establishing the motive, right? That this campaign was in panic mode in October. And then they transition to that with Hope Hicks, and she says, she thinks, and that's a very important word here. She thinks that Trump would rather deal with this after the election, win, lose, or draw, than before the election. And now they're going into the specific money trail. The one thing they can't do, and the one thing that they haven't done, is to put Donald Trump's thumbprint on any crime. Only Michael Cohen can do that, and everybody in that courtroom knows it. So that's going to be the big showdown. Stormy Daniels on the witness stand, they get to talk about sex for a day. Right?
And Cohen is a congenital liar. I mean, it's been proven, and so I'm not sure what weight his testimony carries. But you're right; that's going to be the focal point of the prosecution. There's a jury that's sitting there. I'm just wondering, does it only take one juror to say not guilty for this whole thing to go to a mistrial?
Yes. That's a jury. A jury has to be unanimous, and now that jury they lean on you, and they do it politely. The judge issues a charge to the jury after they deliberate for a long enough time. In a case like this, they're going to let this jury deliberate for a week or more if they have to, because they don't want to do it again, right? And if because initially what happens is every jury I've ever seen, they go back, they vote. Okay, who are and then it turns into the Jets and the Sharks, or the Packers versus the Cowboys. That's who we can't beat over here, by the way, on the football side of things, is the Packers. They show up, and yeah. Oh, sure. And but so what happens is the jurors go back there and they take an initial vote, right? And it's 9-3 one way or the other, or it's 7-5, or you get an undecided here and there. And if you were just to take the jury's word right then and there, you'd mistry every case. So the judge says, you guys go back there and you figure it out, and we want everybody to hold firm to their convictions, but we kind of want an answer here too. So also listen to what your other jurors have to say. But yes, one juror votes not guilty, or on the other way around. It can be 11-1 the other way too. I've had juries hang that way. That sucks really hard, but that can happen, and that the judge would declare a mistrial, and we would potentially do this all over again. Although, I mean, maybe the people of New York, maybe the prosecution says, would Donald take a misdemeanor here? And then maybe, who knows? Maybe he says, I'd rather be on the campaign trail. Sure, I'll pick up some trash on the highways. I'll do that anyway for my campaign. Why not? Who knows what happens if that happens?
Mershon is compromised. I mean, we can forget about what his daughter has done for the Democrat Party. He himself has contributed to Biden and to various other causes, Stop Republicans and things like that. And it was kind of brushed aside by the legal community in New York, particularly the people that wanted to move this case forward, Alvin Bragg and others. That it was a minimal amount of money, but it was still money. I don't care if it was $35 or 35 cents. Is there universally? I hate to say that because we're 50 states and make up a republic. So help me here, because I'm not on tierra firma here. But should there not be some sort of either code of ethic or a law that if you're appointed or elected a judge, you cannot contribute to a political campaign. It'd be the same if what I went through in my career in television. You cannot contribute to a political campaign if you want to be a television news anchor or reporter. Should that not be something that is just fait accompli if you are appointed or elected a judge?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Judges do have to abide by codes, rules of ethics and codes and standards, and those things are pretty highly regulated. Obviously, and I'll tell you this much, in Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, right, you have Dallas County, which is the biggest county. You have Tarrant County, which is where Fort Worth is. Every judge in Tarrant County is a Republican. Every judge in Dallas County is a Democrat. And you have to run on those platforms. You have to toe the party line. If you are not a good Republican or not a good Democrat, and you have not licked enough stamps and folded enough envelopes and walked enough neighborhoods with the party for all the candidates, the party bosses will shove you out. So we kind of all live with this fiction that politics and the judiciary can coexist, and it's fine, right? In Texas, a lawyer can donate to a judge. A party should not be able to donate to a judge, but we live under this fiction that that's all okay, that money doesn't change people or persuade people. And I do think that that does deserve a really hard look. And to your point, I mean, and we can change, if we just change the question even slightly, right? Let's say Judge Marchant, before he's a judge, donates to somebody, right? We don't feel any better about that, do we? I mean, so at what point do you regulate it? It's just, it is, I think, a great question. And I think that I'll put it to you like this, and I'll default here. This is me taking the easy way out of this one. But the fact that we're talking about it is good. If that's a positive that comes out of all this crud, that we are debating these things and talking about these things for the future, then that's what we have to take out of it.
Sure, because I think there are a lot of people, it doesn't matter where you live in this country, whether it's a county judge, state judge, federal judge, anybody that sits on one of the courts of appeal, they're judges that just shouldn't be there. They're not qualified to be there. And they're there because they kissed the right rear end or somebody liked them and they got shoved up the chain, and all of a sudden now they got favors. And it's just like any other profession. I'm not saying they're all that way, but there are a number that are that way. And when I see somebody like Juan Mershon, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this guy knowingly did that, and now he hasn't the judicial respect to recuse himself from this trial. I wonder where this trial is going. I got about 30 seconds here to ask this, Jeremy. If you're Donald Trump and you're his legal team, this thing's going to drag on probably another month, another 6 weeks, and it turns into what I think is become, at least for today, a circus. Do you have to sit there and let it play its course? Can anyone at any level of law, any court at any level of law, all the way up to the Supreme Court, swoop in and say enough is enough?
Not at this point. It's our system. It's not perfect. And to be fair to the system, New York State is probably prosecuting 100,000 or so people who are not running for president of the United States. And the rules have to be one size fit all. If they weren't, then we wouldn't like that either. So unfortunately, the system's not quite designed for this, but that's the best answer I can give you.
And Trump in jail is an absolute nightmare. I think it's a nightmare for the Democrats, quite frankly, but I think it's an absolute nightmare, not only for the judicial system, but for the country as a whole. I can't even imagine that. I mean, you might as well just change the name of this country to Venezuela. I don't care what Trump violates. There's got to be something besides what the judge is doing and what Trump is trying to do. And I think there's got to be something in there other than just the imperious nature of a judge who shouldn't be there in the first place. Would you agree with that?
I think that's why this judge had been extremely hesitant to put him in jail. And I think this judge regrets a gag order because now he finds himself in this real power struggle, right? Because he knows for no other reason, right? If this judge puts Donald Trump in jail, every American everywhere gets a text message, right? Including the jury. And so now I don't know why this jury is not sequestered. Again, they don't ask Jeremy from Texas's opinion on how to run a court in New York, but this is if he puts Trump in jail, he risks the jury knowing about this. But yes, he knows what a circus it would be above and beyond what you already have if he does that. So he really finds himself in a power struggle, right? There's a saying that you don't fight a war of words with somebody who buys ink by the ton, right? Donald Trump buys ink by the ton, and why would you start a war of words with that guy, right? So so now we've got this weird standoff. So I would be really surprised if that happens, and I'm with you. I think it's a very sad day if that does.
All right, Jeremy Rosenthal, I'm glad we caught you in between, at lunch, in between your many trials that you have going on. Never lost a case in your life. You know it, I know it, and we will talk again down the road. Thank you again so much for your time and shedding some light on what's transpiring in this case in New York. Thank you, Jeremy. Stay well.
All right, Ken. Take care.